Hi everyone, it's me, Sonal Dave, your award-winning Celebrant, Toastmaster and public speaking expert. Now, it's been a while since I've done one of these. We just got a little bit busy with weddings and events, but I'm really excited to be back here again today. I've got a wonderful young lady who I'm going to be interviewing today, and I cannot wait to get her on screen. So I'm not going to waste any more time, but a little bit of a round of applause and a little bit of a drum roll as I invite Shreya to join us. Hi, Shreya.
Hello, Sonal. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much for being here with me today, especially as you've literally landed back in the
Yeah.
UK. I've got a busy wedding week, but you've taken the time out. So before I share too much about you, who are you and what do you do?
So I am Shreya, and I am actually an ABA therapist. So ABA is applied behavioural analysis. I do this during the day, and on the side, I am a makeup artist and nail technician.
And do tell me, how busy are you with events at the moment?
Busy. Wedding season seems to be all year round at the moment, so it's go, go, go.
Oh, so you mentioned ABA therapist. What is an ABA therapist?
So ABA stands for Applied Behavioural Analysis, and this is a therapy we do based on the behaviour of science of behaviour. So how we adapt behaviors of individuals to sort of give them skills to use in the outside world.
So is this for children or is this for adults?
So this is an early intervention therapy. It works best with younger children. So I specialize in early years, so 18 months to about 15 years is what I've worked with. But
18
programs
months.
18
80 as
months.
in 18 months.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
absolutely. So when you look at sort of the younger years, you're looking at more play-based therapy in the natural environment. So it's not sort of sitting at the table doing academics work, learning your sort of times tables and all that kind of thing. It's how do we teach children in the natural environment? How do we learn in the environment is what we're trying to give these young children. I have programs start at 6 years old. I have programs start at 12 years old. It just depends on individual families and it depends on individual circumstances or when they can start. But generally, I have always found the earlier you start intervention, the more successful it will be.
So that word intervention may put some people off because it sounds quite, let's intervene,
Mm.
which can be seen as a negative thing. But so, what would you say to somebody who was saying intervention?
So it would be so when I say intervention, I'm talking let's play. Let's learn through play. So, for example, if I'm working with a 1 year old and I'm teaching language and communication skills, how am I going to get those skills from a child? I'll take out toys, I'll look at what motivates children, what reinforces children. It could be bubbles, it could be as simple as bubbles. I'll take some bubbles out, I'll start blowing them, and we'll say pop, 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 and I'll try and get sounds and some sort of language out of these children or some form of communication, even if they're not there in terms of language. It could be a gesture, it could be a point, or they want more, they may come and get my bubbles. So it's all about making learning fun.
Oh, I like the sound of that. But when I was doing the research for my journals and working with the focus group, there was some. What's a diplomatic way of saying this? Why am I being diplomatic? I'm not normally diplomatic. There was some negativity towards ABA. Could you do you have any thoughts on where that comes from, why,
Sure.
and
So ABA actually was founded in Florida. So it's widely used in America. And let's go back many, many years ago. ABA was called to the traditional ABA, and that would be getting children to sit at a table, no matter what their age was, and to teach them through sitting at a table. Whereas now, ABA has changed, it's evolved, there's lots of new research, and we focus on something called the verbal approach, the verbal behavior approach, which is getting the social language and communication skills out of children. But we kind of have moved away from the traditional side of teaching on a table and teaching, like I say, natural environment. So it could be on the floor, it could be in the garden, it could be going out for a walk to the shops and learning through your walk and just sort of looking at your environment and seeing how am I able to learn in this environment.
So it kind of it feels is it like Montessori style teaching where it
It could, you could put it a little bit. So I've worked in many nurseries and schools before. It really is, you have the whole idea of ABA is you have a team of people. So you have myself as a therapist, and you may have two other therapists on your program, and you have certain targets that you need to master off, certain milestones that you need to master off. So I use something called the VB map, and this goes through this milestones from between 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, and so forth. We look at these targets, we look at sort of the parts that we can sort of master off, the skills that they've already got. We look at the skills that they need to learn, that need to be taught. How are we going to do that? And when you have a team of therapists together, everyone's teaching style is so different. And that's
mm.
what makes learning so versatile.
So actually, it's not really Montessori where put them in a room with stuff and let them learn. It's about, okay, what do they already know and what do they not know, and how can we help them learn the not know
Exactly.
in different environments? What's quite
And it could
interesting,
be that
go
you
on.
have toys and stuff out. You could have sort of like PlayStation set up. It could be PlayStations of Play-Doh, messy play, train tracks, what have you. And you can let the children sort of explore themselves, which is also really important. It's a very important part of development, is to be able to explore yourself and see what different things do. That would be one part. And then we can go in and be like, right, okay, so how are we going to make this play more functional? Or how are we going to gain different skills from these children? It could be motor imitation, it could be, it could be anything. Um, but it's making learning and play as different as possible in as many different settings as possible.
It almost feels like I often challenge the way learning is taught in schools for neurotypical people. You know, sit behind a desk and there's a chalkboard and there's a teacher, or it might be a whiteboard these
Oh,
days.
yeah,
So, you know, and not everyone learns in that same way. And actually, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult or a teenager, we're all so different and we're all so unique that we almost need to find our own learning styles, you
absolutely.
know. And so I do kind of, I understand where it comes, but it was just that research was kind of saying to me, well, ABA, but it's great to hear your take on it.
I can see where the controversy comes from. I understand where it comes from. However, I've been doing this for 11 years, and I have seen children grow from strength to strength to strength. And sometimes there have been situations where parents have had to take a break from ABA, or they've not been able to carry on for whatever personal circumstances they have, and they really notice a difference. They really find some struggles because ABA is sort of like routine, sort of your familiarity. There's loads of different aspects that go into it. Um, and so I can see for some people it's really benefited, but I can see why some people would be very aversive to it because of the research that's out there and what people have said.
Yeah, and I do wonder if it's like a number of things we find in society where the more people talk about it, the more people become aware, the more people actually go and experience it, maybe understand it, um, that it could be different. I mean, I am not the expert, so I'm not the one to say, but it's great to explore this because a lot of people, especially what I'm finding in the neurodiverse community, the neurodivergent mind, just saying those words, there are so many of these words out there that we were not taught growing up as
Yep.
children, and our parents and their parents would have never heard of any of this terminology. So there is just so much that people need to learn. So how do you actually find out about an ABA school?
So an ABA school, there you would literally just Google's your best friend. You'd go onto Google, you'd find lots of different types of ABA schools. Um, I personally haven't worked in many ABA schools. I know of a few, Snowflake and um, gosh, I can't remember at the top of my head for the words, for the names of the schools, but um, ABA schools are for, you know, you've done your time in terms of ABA therapy at home. Now you're ready to go to school. You're looking for that support. So you would find lots of information on Google. There is tons and tons and tons of schools that you can research, and there's also loads of forums as well that you can sort of get parents' viewpoints on what these schools are like and their experiences. Um, I'm a private therapist, so if I had families come to me and ask me, I would happily sort of direct them to families that I've worked with to give them their experiences. I had a mum not so long ago call me and ask me about her son, and I simply said, you know what, you get the first-hand experience of parents. I think there's no better way
Yeah.
than giving experience of parents.
No, and I think it's quite easy to go, "Hey, I can help you," as opposed to a parent being able to say what worked, but also what may not have worked for their child. Because
Absolutely.
again, as mentioned, we're all so different. So what may work for one person, you might need a slightly different approach for somebody else. But just getting that direct feedback from somebody who's been through the process, nothing beats that, because that's just
Exactly.
real and it's like true. It's, it's not anecdotal, it's actually true in real life.
And it's experiences of parents, right? So I'm not a parent at this stage. I don't have that experience that I can say, okay, my child, this is experience that I've had with my child. Whereas with parents, this is this what you're going to get. It's going to be the honest truth. So I can
Yeah.
let you know how I can help you, but really you want to know what are people's experiences, what are people's reviews about sort of certain things they may want to invest time in.
Why do you think, Shreya, that neurodiversity or the neurodivergent mind are not really spoken about? You don't kind of, I don't know, go shopping with your friends and talk about neurodiversity, or you go to the restaurant for a meal or go to the pub and start talking about neurodiversity. Why do you think it's not a subject that's openly discussed?
I think there's a massive taboo around it. I think people always think, what will other people think? So if I now start this conversation, what are other people going to think? And I think it's just the society we're in. We almost feel scared to let anybody in and be like, you know what, this is what I'm going through. This is the experience I'm having. But it's always that what if, or what will that person say, or how will that person judge me for being this way? Um, I don't think it should be like that, but that that is how it is.
Mm. And do you think some of that stems from the lack of awareness, or that fear, the
Yeah,
fear
the
of the
lack of
unknown?
awareness. I just feel like sometimes help isn't quite obvious. It's not obviously there. Sometimes you'll go to a doctor, for example, and say, okay, I'm worried about this, but something completely different comes out of it. And then your mind has changed a little bit and you think, oh, maybe it's this now. Or, let me look online and let me kind of see, but there's only so much information you can get from the internet. You can find loads, but it's so important to be able to talk to people and to say, this is what I'm going through. And I think we as a community just don't talk about it enough. The
Mm.
more you talk about it, the more your experiences are shared, then someone else will share it with somebody else, and it will carry on. But I just don't think we're quite there yet in terms of speaking openly about it.
And one of the things that has come up in a previous interview was about also the barriers in terms of, you know, just getting somebody to realize or accept there is something going on, and then actually getting into the system of process, or the process
I
of
think
systems
I
to
think
get
there's
you.
this whole thing about labels.
Yeah.
We don't want to be labeled in a certain way. Um, and I don't think it should be about labels. It's you're trying to get the help that you're required, um, without someone being able to judge you.
Yeah. And it's difficult, isn't it? Because even once you get into, let's just say a GP says, okay, let me refer you, that process isn't like a 1 month process. You end up waiting possibly for over a year. And
I think
I
now waiting, the processes are much longer. So at least, yeah, so at least for diagnosis, I think, God, you're looking at over 2 years on the
Well,
NHS.
it's almost your baby's born and just get them registered so that you can go through the process just in case, which which seems quite ridiculous, but
Yeah,
it is. I suppose it's just sort of sharing, what we all know is that it's the kind of the difficult times for the NHS and the staff. They're trying to
absolutely.
do the best they can within a system that's not it's kind of broken, and the staff, there's not enough staff, and all the other underlying issues that the NHS have at the moment. So if somebody wanted to go to a school, an ABA, a school that has ABA
Yeah.
therapy, is it like an application form and a process? And
Yes, I would assume so. I think it would also almost be the same as sort of applying for a normal school. Would need to show your EHCP plan. And also, I find with schools need to be able to meet all different ages and abilities.
I'm going to
So
just stop you there. For those who are watching or maybe watching afterwards, um, who don't know what is an EHCP plan, do you want to just share what that is first?
educational healthcare plan. So the educational healthcare plan is a plan that is put together for you by the NHS, to get that extra one-to-one support, to get that extra help that you may need going forward in schools. And that is sort of your first step of being able to get even funding. So if you wanted funding from the local authority, you would need an EHCP plan in place, to be able to sort of apply for that. Um, so that's what the EHCP plan is.
Thank
So
you.
in
And
terms of getting into a school,
school.
so it's being able to find the right school for you. So I don't know how many ABA schools there are. I don't think there's very many. And as you can imagine, the number of applicants would be huge amongst all the schools. So it would really, again, just be a matter of finding the right school because, again, they all do different things in different ways. There's so many different teaching styles and stuff. So ones that work for each individual and parents and children and individuals and what have you. And then, yeah, just applying for it as you would a school.
Thank you. Um, it's quite interesting, isn't it? That does the so my immediate thought was, does the ABA school replace your normal state school or private school or
So essentially, if you put your child into an ABA school, you would be learning, you would still go through curriculums, it's everything, but it's a little bit of therapy as well. So these schools will have access to larger sensory rooms, the facilities you would need, sort of like a lot of outdoor space, and then classroom, you will have probably messy playrooms. You'd have lots of different types of settings, which will work for individuals who need that extra support and even downtime, like sensory rooms. I know some mainstream schools have sensory rooms where they can go and have some time out, and that's really important. It's really important to have certain things put into your day that it's not just table work.
yeah. I think if I when I look back to my schooling days many years ago, yeah, table work wasn't the right thing for
I
me
mean,
for sure.
from 8 to 3 you're at a table
Yep,
learning
absolutely.
via a book, whereas ABA schools will sort of look at your academics as well as learning through the environment. So, experiments and physically having objects to do different things with. That's and you need space for those sort of resources as well.
Yeah, interestingly, in one of the organisations that I'm a part of, Shishagunj, we do a lot of learning through fun. So,
Yeah,
which is so important because actually, you actually learn more when you're enjoying it than learning through something you don't enjoy. So,
absolutely.
I think it's so important to kind of keep that motto going so that people get the benefit of both because not everyone's academic, let's be honest. We're not all
I mean,
academics, and
I definitely didn't feel like I was when I was in school. I would have loved to learn through sort of contriving motivational situations. But back then, sort of however many years that was, it was just your textbooks, pens
yeah,
and papers.
no, absolutely. And trying to sort of hoping that you like the teacher, because that might be a
Exactly.
way to learn to, if you like the teacher, that might be a way to enjoy the lesson and then learn more. So coming to journaling, um, is journaling something you do or something you recommend
Yes, I
to do?
do. Admittedly, I haven't had much time, but it definitely makes a difference. It's just a way of sort of releasing, isn't it? And just being able to visually sort of see what you've put down on paper and feeling those emotions and letting things go and reflecting on your day or your weeks when you do journal, um, to really go deep into how you're feeling, and things that may have affected your day, things that went really well and things that didn't. And it kind of makes you think about how can you be better or how can you do things differently.
And I think one of the things that we've picked up on through the focus group and all the interviews that I've been doing is almost journaling in whatever form you choose to journal is also a way to understand you better
100%.
and what triggers you,
I
whether
mean,
it's a voice, a sound, or, a
our
smell or
lives are at 100 miles an hour. You're always constantly doing something and you're thinking about the next thing that you've got to do, sort of like 5 hours in 5 hours' time. So at this point where you're journaling and you're sitting down and you're thinking, you know what, this is my time and this is for me to reflect on myself and how I can improve myself, how do I see that how the day went as well? Like the day just goes, you wake up and it's gone
yeah,
by the end of it. It's a nice way just to sit down and self-reflect, definitely.
yeah, no. And I'm of course very, very excited about my journal.
Yeah, love.
And it's been great creating this. One for adults, one for children. And what's been so great to create it with the focus group, Shreya, was that, people within the focus group either themselves had a neurodiverse condition or were a parent or a carer or were in the medical field.
Sure.
And more people, interestingly, I had a message the other day. Somebody had bought it for their dad who's got dementia, and their dad was actually using it and finding it really useful for writing things down. And then, when couldn't remember something, would reflect back. And,
Yeah.
so it's quite interesting how it's been
Funny
created
that
for one
actually,
thing.
because because I've been journaling, so I started sort of early on this year. And then I kind of scroll back and I look back to like sort of 6 months ago and I'm like, oh, this is where I was and this is what I felt, this is what I thought. And then I look back to now and I'm thinking, wow, I've grown this much, or, you know, this has changed in my sort of journaling or my life or my experiences. It's quite nice to have it. So it's almost like a memory, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you've sort of, yeah,
Yeah, and what's lovely is, especially for, say, somebody who's got dementia or Alzheimer's, who's had a stroke, it's
yeah,
a lovely way to help them not forget,
absolutely.
some important things. I mean, in the journal, they could put a picture of, the grandchildren, or they could put a picture of a fun day out, or whatever it is that they want to. But the beauty of this is, if you'd asked me 4 years ago journaling, I would have gone poo poo, not interested.
Hands up, I would do the same. I would have done the same.
But it's interesting because I'm definitely a vocal journaler, um, and I share a lot by my speaking. But I know somebody who is a drawer, will draw, and somebody who can't draw but doesn't like writing and doesn't like speaking. So will,
Yeah,
what's it called, doodling,
doodle.
pin men and pin women and things like that. So all about finding the right thing that's for you. So
Absolutely.
I've come to the part of the interview that I am really excited about, because I'm going to ask you three random questions
Okay.
that just are going to let me, as well as anyone who's watching now or who may be watching later, to know a little bit more about you. So, if you could do one thing to change the world to be a better place, what would it be?
I would help everyone. Everyone that comes to me. I want to help everyone to
I know, I know the feeling. I'm the same. I want to just help everyone, put
exactly.
everyone
I
in
mean, I
front.
have parents call me all the time, and I only have so much time in my timetable to give. There's only one of me. I do my absolute best to point them in the right direction. But if I could help every single person, I would. That's for
Oh,
me, it's about giving,
yeah,
really.
I love that. And there's it's lovely to have the two sides, isn't it, to you? There's the business side, there's the giving side, which is lovely. So, who is your favorite superhero and why?
Superhero. Oh gosh. Spider-Man, he can fly everywhere.
No, brilliant. And he can make
Yeah.
webs and all the rest of
Yeah.
it. It's not his
He can be
outfit then.
anywhere at any point.
Love it. It's not his outfit then, right?
No, no, it's just the webs that he can fly everywhere and be anywhere at any time.
And then final question, what is your favorite animal and why?
Do you know what? I didn't think I would ever say this, but I actually love dogs. I've overcome my fear of dogs,
Me too.
and I just love them. I would love to
Oh,
get a little dog one day.
oh, you should do. You should do. You know, I had the absolute most fit. I would not come to your house. I would cross the road. That was
Exactly the
me.
same.
And my husband convinced me that I would be okay. And when I wasn't expecting it to happen, suddenly a dog arrived in our house,
Yeah,
and yep, it's been the best move ever. In fact, they have helped me through my own kind of ups and downs and traumas in life, and
yeah.
really do help. So get a dog.
Okay,
Get a
soon.
dog.
I'll have to persuade my husband.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him. But I really, really appreciate your time with me today,
Thank you
and
for having
in
me.
in particular, especially around the ABA therapy, because I really wanted to explore this because there will be people who'll be going, "Oh God, no way," and then there'll be others going, "But hold on, it's been really helpful," and then there'll
Yeah,
be others who don't really understand the American way and what's happening here more locally in the UK. So,
absolutely. That
and
whole
I
traditional side of things is sort of, we don't really see that anymore at all. You know, if I, like I say, we go through what we call the verbal behavior map, and these could be the most simple skills like language, being able to match, being able to respond to your name. These are all skills we need in daily life. Um, and that's what we're here for, is to help those children use those skills in the world. So when they're ready to go and, spread their wings, they've got the skills and they've got the knowledge to do so. But at the same token, it's making sure that we keep learning fun, high, and contriving highly motivational situations for these kids. That is what is really, really important.
And for me, what's really important that's come out of our interview today is that, you know what, it's a different style of learning, and
That's it.
there are so many different styles of learning, and it's important about for any parents or even adults who are trying to um, help themselves. It's about finding the right style of learning that suits you, that's
Yeah,
going to make you a better person, so that, as we all know, life is too short, but
yeah,
we just find a way that we enjoy life so that we become better people ourselves and we succeed in what we want to achieve,
that's it.
as opposed to the expectations of others.
And
That,
there's never one road to
yeah,
succeed. There's so many different routes.
ab-
There's no one right answer. So what I might do with one person, I'm not doing with the other person because it just doesn't work for them. And I think we
no,
have to accept that and take that on board, is that going to school, going to college, going to uni, getting the degree, it doesn't have to be that route. It could be a different route and you can still be a success.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so, so much, Shreya.
Pleasure.
And if anyone does want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
I can leave you my links. I've got Instagram, I'll leave you my email address and I'll leave you my contact number.
Perfect. Thank you so, so much. I'm going to drop you into the waiting room and I
No
will be
worries.
back very, very soon.
Thank you.
So there you go. That was Shreya Pandya, daytime ABA therapist supporting children and adults to find ways to be better versions of themselves, providing and supporting skills and developing them as individuals. And then in the evenings and the weekends, she's making people look beautiful. I might just have to book her in for me as well. But any questions, I will be sharing her details later across social media. So do look out for them. But you can, of course, get in in touch with me, and I'll happily pass on any questions or your details to Shreya as well. But once again, thank you so much for being here today for the interview. I really hope that you've enjoyed listening to what Shreya has had to share. And any questions, whether it's about my public speaking work, whether it's about my journals for both adults or children, or even if it's about my wedding industry work that I do as well, do get in touch. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you at the next interview. But for now, bye.